much. Good morning. Good morning. Thanks. Have a seat. Have a seat. Man, what a venue. Urban Stillhouse. Wow, this is great. Thanks for hosting us. We really appreciate that. We're happy to be here. We've got a lot of folks that are in attendance who were involved with the legislation that I'm going to sign today, and you'll hear from some of them, and others will be up when we do the ceremony. We are joined by the Executive Director of the Florida Department of Highway Patrol, our Highway Safety and Motor Vehicles, which includes the Florida Highway Patrol, Dave Kerner. We have Senators Jay Collins and Jonathan Martin here. We have Dina Thompson, who's going to speak and talk about her story. We have Senator Rusan and Burton are here. We have Representatives Yakorsky. We have Bernie Jocks, Cheney, Triblusi, Doug Bankson, Adam Anderson, and do we have any more? Do we have Trunow is here? Where's he at? Okay, did I miss anybody in the legislature? Okay, thanks so much for that. And then we also are joined by Joe Petito and family. He's the Vice President of the Gabby Petito Foundation. We have Nikki Schmidt, President, Board Member, Gabby Petito Foundation, and then Tara Petito and Jim Schmidt also from the foundation. So thank you all for coming, and thank you for helping with getting this legislation where it needs to be. I'm excited today because in Florida, we stand for the well-being and the innocence of our children. We have done... We have taken action over these many years to protect the well-being of our children in a variety of ways, to support the rights of parents, particularly as it relates to education, and to ensure that those that do children harm are held accountable, including, more recently, reinstituting the death penalty for pedophiles. And we actually have a case that's trying to do that. So we're proud of that, but we also know that there's always more to do. At the end of the day, we want kids to just be kids. And when you have adults that are looking to harm them, we've got to step in and we've got to protect them, and that's exactly what we're doing here today. So we're going to be signing 5 pieces of legislation that is going to do a number of things. One of the things that we are going to do is we are going to crack down on the grooming of these minors. And the fact of the matter is, with the rise of the internet and social media and all these different apps, that has been a playground for these predators to go in and to groom these young kids. So HB 1545 is going to protect children from adult groomers attempting to prey on them. It will prohibit an adult from engaging in a pattern of communication to a minor that includes explicit and detailed sexual activity descriptions, and that's what they try to do. They try to get into that venue with these young kids. It will increase penalties for child exploitation crimes, and it establishes the conduct as a third-degree felony, which strengthens the punishments associated with child exploitation and making those punishments more severe as they should. We want to deter this from happening. You know, as much as we've done in Florida, and we've done more than most other states. I mean, this whole online stuff is a major, major cesspool, and even the most diligent parent is not going to be able to do it alone. And so we're stepping up to say, don't even try to do that in Florida. You are going to face significant consequences if you do. We're also signing HB 1131. So this is going to create a grant program within the Florida Department of Law Enforcement that is going to facilitate online sting operations. And so, you know, Florida will be our very own grant program to catch a predator. We're going to be doing that in really significant ways. I'm also signing HB 1235, which creates stricter guidelines for sexual offender registration. I mean, for example, some of these offenders will register, which they're required to do, but then they will set up shop at a temporary residence where they're not registered. So maybe you're registered in Fort Myers, and then you have an apartment in St. Petersburg, and you go in, and a parent will look to see if there's any offender maybe in their apartment complex, and it won't show up because they're registered many miles away. So we're putting the kibosh on that loophole to make sure that the whole purpose of the registry is to alert other people about who may be in their communities or in their neighborhoods. And the reason why you do that is because folks that have committed these types of offenses typically reoffend. And there's a higher likelihood that that could happen. So we want people to be on notice. So this does that. It also makes sure that they're registering vehicles and vessels if they're using that as their living quarters. You have a houseboat and bring it somewhere else. People have a right to know about that. We're also going to make sure that they can't just get off the registry, and also that international travel is documented as appropriate. I'm also signing SB 1224, which strengthens the role of state right guardian ad litem office and, thanks to the advocacy of the Gabby Petito Foundation, implements new training requirements to ensure law enforcement properly assesses domestic violence situations. We are going to have a new role for supportive adults to assist children transitioning out of foster care so that they can live and work independently. We're also establishing a fostering prosperity grant program for youth and young adults aging out of foster care to facilitate smooth transitions to trade schools to teach financial literacy and to provide college prep tools. The bill creates, and this is something that I know was patterned after some other states that did this many years ago, the bill creates a lethality assessment that requires responding law enforcement officers to a domestic violence incident to determine whether a domestic violence victim is at a higher risk of death or serious injury. The bill was inspired by Gabby Petito, who of course was tragically murdered by her own fiancé. Gabby's father, Joe, has been supporting and pushing for the language in the legislation, as well as other members of the family and the foundation. And today we honor those efforts by making this the law of the land in the state of Florida. Finally, I'll be signing HB 305 to expand the types of evidence that can be presented to a jury in child sex abuse cases and increase penalties on those who take part in the sexual trafficking of minors. So we're taking a strong stand here in the state of Florida. That's typically what we do in these situations, and I think that this is going to offer good protection for the children of our state, and people should just know that we are forthrightly committed, whatever we need to do to maintain Florida as the best place to raise kids. We're going to do it, and we're going to make sure that we keep the bad guys at bay. So I'm looking forward to signing these bills in a second, but before I do that, we're going to hear from some of our speakers. And so we'll start with Dave Kerner, Florida Department of Highway Safety and Motor Vehicles.
Governor, thank you for this opportunity. It's really just a beautiful setting, but more importantly, I'm excited about the legislation that will be signed today by the governor. When we talk about protecting children it's not even fair to just call them perverts, because that doesn't do it justice. They are the manifestation of evil. And so when we talk about enforcing and holding them accountable, we have to look to the legislation that empowers law enforcement. And I'll speak very briefly, Governor, about House Bill 305, and I'll put my hat on as a former special prosecutor. We talk about how hard we work to protect the rights of the accused and the due process, and that's the foundation of our Constitution. But what about the rights of the victim, and what about the rights particularly of minor children that have been sexually abused? And so this bill allows for some very common sense reform to our criminal code, right? Our rules of evidence and our Florida rules of criminal procedure. Why shouldn't we be able to tell the jury about the out-of-court statements that children make shortly after being abused? We know that the science says that we can rely on those out-of-court statements. The jury should be able to hear what their recollections were at the time that they were abused. The governor talked about online sting operations, House Bill 1131 by Representative Temple. I remember working at a small law enforcement agency of only 20 officers. I would have never thought back in 2004 that small law enforcement agencies would be participating in internet crimes against children investigations. But this bill empowers local law enforcement, and if you're a sergeant, if you're an officer at a smaller department, and you're watching this press conference and you see what the governor's going to sign today, remember that you are a force multiplier, and we would encourage you to apply to FDLE for these funds, because we need all the help that we can get from all of our law enforcement officers in this state. And then finally, we'll talk about very briefly House Bill 1545, child exploitation offenses by Representative Baker. The governor talked about this, but when we have adults, men on the internet talking to children about detailed verbal descriptions or narrative accounts of sexual activity, sexual conduct, or sexual enticement, we know where this is going to end. And when we talk about enforceability, we need to talk about prevention. And this empowers law enforcement to start preventing these crimes from ever happening. I think it's an outstanding bill. And I'll close by saying that this legislation as a whole, all of the bills put together, both enhances enforceability and accountability, but just as important, it also amplifies prevention and detection that needs to occur to keep our children safe. And I'll close by saying, because of Governor DeSantis' leadership, Florida is the freest state in the nation. But that freedom stops when you come here to commit a crime, particularly against the children in this state. It's an honor to be in your presence, lawmakers, and it will be an honor to watch our great governor sign this great legislation. Thank you.
Well, it is exciting to be here today. I am Senator Jay Collins, and I represent Hillsborough County, just on the other side of the water. This place has a unique message and history with me. Scotty, it's beautiful. To each of the people who work here and are allowing us to use this venue, thank you for letting us do this. I don't know how many of you know about this, but this has deep ties to my career as a United States Army Green Beret. This memorializes, through Horse Soldier Bourbon, what we did on the invasion, where courageous men went in on horseback to protect those things they love. They protected our American freedoms abroad. And now we're talking about protecting those things that we love and hold most dear right here at home. It's fitting that we do it in a place like this. So thank you for letting us use the Urban Stillhouse. We talk about our role as Green Berets, and we did. We protected our American interests. When I jumped into politics, I want to share a little anecdote. I was concerned, I was frustrated about why had I not done more. If I was willing to die in a nation that wasn't ours, beside people we didn't know, to protect our freedoms abroad, why would I not do all that I could here to preserve and protect those same freedoms? It takes courage, candor, and commitment. And Mr. Governor, you and I have talked about this several times. I can't think of somebody who embodies that more than Governor DeSantis. The courage. The courage to do what's necessary, the candor to speak the truth, and it's the commitment that separates this. It's a commitment and the accountability where Florida shines. And my friends, that is what we're here today talking about, holding people accountable so we can protect those things we hold dear. Mr. Governor, thank you for the opportunity to be here, and thank you for leading the way in Florida, and thank each of you for being here. God bless each of you, and may God continue to bless this great nation.
Thank you, Senator Collins, for your sacrifice before you got into the Senate, and also the incredible work you've been doing here in the Florida Senate. Thank you, Governor, for continuing to protect our kids. We did a lot last year. The death penalty for child molesters was a first in the nation since the U.S. Supreme Court got their hands in writing statutes and writing the law. We fixed that in Florida last year. Thank you, Governor, for your leadership in protecting kids. This year, if you think of bookends, and Representative Yarkowski gave me this analogy, last year we had a law go into effect that gives a death penalty for child molesters. This year, on the other end of that bookshelf, we have the ability to protect our most vulnerable, our youngest, our most innocent before they're physically traumatized. The mental trauma of being groomed is now going to be protected in Florida. We're going to prevent kids from having that mental trauma, that mental anguish, and ultimately that mental hook that oftentimes leads into a life of being victimized through human trafficking and being victimized by these most heinous individuals. So on the other end of that bookshelf today, we get to implement this new law. Thank you, Governor, for your leadership and working to get this across the finish line. Thank you, Representative Yarkowski, Representative Bankson, and of course, Representative Baker, whose bill this is. She had a slightly different bill, and you'll see that language in there as well, that enhances the penalties for possession of child porn to where it should be, no longer a third-degree felony. But these two bills merge to make one great bill to protect kids on the other end of that bookshelf, to protect kids from being physically traumatized. So thank you, Governor, for your leadership. Thank you, representatives. I'm looking forward to giving this additional tool to our prosecutors, to law enforcement, and our child protection teams when they're interviewing these kids after they've been through trauma. This is one additional thing that they can get, one additional charge that we can put on that score sheet, one additional penalty that can keep these child molesters in prison even longer. It's going to go a long way to keeping our kids even safer in the state of Florida. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Dina Thompson. Some of you may know me, some of you may not. But 5,287 days ago, my daughter, Summer, was lured away by a sexual predator. Ironically enough, he actually had child pornography on his computer that had been turned in months prior to her disappearance. However, the wheels of justice do turn slowly sometimes, so he was not caught prior to abducting, raping, and murdering my daughter. Summer was recovered in the Georgia landfill 2 days later. She is a twin. She was 7 years old, and I couldn't have asked for a better state to be in. Unfortunately, Summer did lose her life here, but it gave me a voice to try to help other parents and other families not ever suffer a travesty like this, and being provided a wonderful governor that actually most of the governors since all of this have happened have been amazing guys. But I just want to take the opportunity to say thank you for making life for children here in Florida safe, and for also getting the law passed that these people should be put to death. There is no fixing it. It sees no color, it sees no creed, it sees nothing. It has nothing to do with your religion, whether you're a good parent, a bad parent. Bad things happen to good people, and I'm living proof of that. I just want to say thank you to everybody who worked so tirelessly on passing laws for children to make it safer for them here. These animals have tricks that they share with each other. They have lures that they share with each other each month to try to get children to come to them. So we have to, it takes a village to raise a child. I've said that from 5,000 days ago, and I still believe that to this day. So thank you all for everything you've done and everything you continue to do, and thank you, Governor DeSantis.
All right, so all of our participants that are going to come up, we'll go ahead and we'll get this done. good. Nice. Well, good stuff. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Happy to do it. Okay, so good work. We're going to be, so we did Monday, we did some fentanyl legislation, expanded our core network. Yesterday, we did the retail theft legislation to where, we're not going to have toothpaste locked up in pharmacies in Florida. Like, you don't steal. If you steal, you're going to get held accountable. And then today, with the anti-grooming legislation, really important for the protection of children. We'll do some more public safety tomorrow. And I think if you look back, this has been a great run, this legislative session, in terms of public safety. We're proud of being a law and order state. We're going to continue to do it. I'm happy to take some questions. First, I'll just say, the inflation coming in, the reports, this is not petering out. They had been saying that for a long time, that it was just going to peter out. It has not. We need to have lower interest rates, and I think what's happened is likely going to perhaps prevent that from happening this year. But people are hurting because all that's reflected in the cost of things that matter to people: housing, mortgages, groceries. You just saw last year for 2023, the number one individual itemized increase for inflation was auto insurance. This print today for just a month had a massive increase, and that's really, really difficult. And so this is, I think, the wages of Bidenomics. I don't think things have been more tepid in terms of inflation. I think inflation's continuing to be quite strong, and that's going to make it more and more difficult for folks. So maybe stop spending so much money up there. Maybe try to do some things differently, because clearly we're now in 2024, and everything we've seen for many, many years has helped put us in this place thanks to your federal government. Fortunately, we're doing it differently. We don't control the national economy. We're just a very small sliver with our state budget. But you look at things like the toll relief that we did, 50% reduction in tolls for Florida commuters. That matters. You look at all the tax relief we've done in the last few years. We'll announce some more coming up in the ensuing weeks. That really, really matters. So we're going to continue to do that. But that report was problematic. But I think it's reflective of what people are feeling. There's a lot of people in the media trying to say like everything's so great. The reality is these things are becoming more and more unaffordable, and it really hasn't petered out like they had predicted. Okay, anybody?
Governor, you mentioned that the state was going to be doing child, to catch a predator style stings. Can you describe what that means and how that's different from what local law enforcement does, as we see here in the Tampa Bay?
Well, I think some of it will be supplementing what they're doing. I think that some of them are doing a really good job on that. This will be more money, more resources. Unfortunately, even a sheriff's department that is very diligent in this in an urban county, you've got, unfortunately, a lot of potential victims. So I think some people have done a really good job. I think it'll supplement. In some areas, maybe there'll be new things. A lot of it depends, and I don't think it's uniform throughout the state. But this is real money that is going to be made available to be able to really, really deter the online predators. And it needs to happen, and we've done a lot on it. But we need to make it to where people are deterred from doing this in the first place in the state of Florida.
You spoke up against predatory student loans, and you offered the opportunity for universities to take accountability. You offered discharging bankruptcy as options. We were talking about that last year. Why is the state of Florida filing a lawsuit, joining the lawsuit against the Biden student loan plan? And how does the discharging of bankruptcy differ from just simply canceling the debts outright?
Because he doesn't have constitutional authority to do that. It would require legislation. And not only that, they've gone down this road. They don't have the ability to get it through Congress. He acted, and he was slapped down by the U.S. Supreme Court, and they're doing it again to try to do it. But what I propose is much different than what he's proposing. What he's proposing illegally, he doesn't have the authority to do it, is to basically say, if you're a truck driver, you didn't go to college, you don't have student debt, sorry, you're going to have to pony up. to pay the student loans of somebody, who maybe got a degree in sociology or something and is not gainfully employed and can't afford the loans. That is not fair, and that's not something I've ever supported. Now, hold on. Now, having the universities back the loans, to me, is just, because the universities benefit when students take out exorbitant loans. The universities benefit if somebody takes 6 years to get a bachelor's degree rather than 4 years. And what have they done in the era when there's been a lot of the free money out there with the student loans? Has the education gotten better at these schools? No. What has it done? It's led to a massive administrative bloat that has happened. And obviously in Florida, we eliminated the DEI offices here, but a lot of that is what's happened. So the incentives have not been good, and I do think some of these students, and that's why I offered what I offered, because I do think some of the students were sold a bill of goods that somehow these degrees were magic, but who is responsible for this mess? And I think the university should be in a situation where they're responsible. And if you're graduating people that are gainfully employed and have successful careers, then it's never going to matter. And so maybe you got to do maybe you have to do less zombie studies and do more things that actually matter in the universities. That's what it's all about. So I think that the fact that I've had, I think, a very strong proposal in student loans does not mean that you just unilaterally cancel loans that you don't have the authority to do and impose that burden on taxpayers, many of whom have not taken out student debt and have managed to do okay. So they're just different things, but he does not have the authority to do what he's doing. I think what he's doing is, I think it's an election year thing. I think he's trying to generate votes. I honestly, as bad as the border is, I wouldn't be surprised. You're hearing these reports. He may close the border after all. And I think if he does it, and people say, well, why didn't you do it the first 3 years or whatever? But I think that they're thinking, hey, if we just close it through the election, people will forget about the border as an issue and that somehow that's going to help them. Look, I don't know. I mean, that'd be very cynical if that worked. But I wouldn't be surprised if he's doing that. I think he's maneuvering to try to figure out ways to give himself an advantage in the election.
Dave Kerner. My question is for Executive Director Dave Kerner.
Come on, Dave.
Yep, how can I help?
I'm Jen Ward. I'm an investigative reporter at Tampa Bay. For the past year, we've been asking your agency about companies purchasing bulk driver data of Floridians. Why does your agency continue to allow companies with a history of data breaches and privacy lawsuits to purchase Floridians' data?
Well, I would reject your premise, by the way. We've responded to you. We've been candid with you. We follow the statutory duties that we have as set by the legislature. We don't sell that information. We comply with the law. And that's what the public records laws require me as the administrator to do. And any citizen in the state would have to comply with those same laws. So thank you.
Good deal. All right, guys. Thanks so much. Great to see you all.